This is vintage Axial AX10, and I just got it in a lot with a couple other cars for a pretty good price. Now, obviously this thing isn't in great shape. It only has shocks, a couple links, and that's about it. I've already done a little bit of work, but I've gotten stuck on this. The fact that these two screws aren't connected causes the suspension to feel super flimsy. And because I can't find the right part in my shop, I'm gonna have to 3D print one. So let's get started with that process. So we're gonna start by measuring the points. I have a caliper here, and it's a super useful tool if you're into printing at all. It basically takes the measurements digitally and tells you exactly how large something is. So we're using 3mm screws, and the gap is about 50mm. Let's get designing. We are now in Tinkercad, which is a pretty good program. It's pretty easy to use. And as you can see, there's a 3mm hole there, which should line up perfectly with the screws. You do this by making a 5mm cylinder, and then getting the screw size and putting that in the center. Then you turn that to a hole, and you have the perfect part. After you group them all together, it should be ready to put into a slicer. A slicer basically tells the printer where to print. And you're gonna need one if you're gonna print anything. Here's basically how the plans are gonna work. It's very simple, because it's a very simple part. It's gonna take about 15 minutes to print, which isn't too bad, but we are gonna need two. This is gonna cost 2 cents a piece for both, and it took about 10 minutes to design. Right now we're printing some Arma body mounts, which should be done in a little bit, so I'll let you know when that happens. I'm using black PLA Plus for this print, so it should be pretty strong. Alright, we got the part printed, and it looks like it's gonna fit perfectly. From what I can feel, the part is pretty strong, so we aren't gonna have to worry about it breaking anytime soon. Alright, we have the back part on. And it's actually looking pretty good. Aside from getting some new links, which will look a bit more original, the rear suspension is almost done. The rear axle seems to be in pretty good condition aside from dremeling it, so that saves a lot of time and money. Next up, we need to do the front and the transmission. Alright, so here's the box of parts we got with it, and we're gonna look for some of the parts we need in here. So, this part I just found is an absolute lifesaver, because I would have to order this from a vintage retailer if I couldn't find it, which wouldn't be cheap or time efficient at all. But with that, that's most of the specific parts we need to finish this build. So right now it's time to just lock in and get the stuff done. Alright, so we have the links on here, and they aren't perfect, but they're gonna work just fine. And I honestly kind of like the look of the green anodized metal. Alright, so we just got some new shocks in, and these are zero gravity. I have no clue if that's the right term, but that's what I've heard people call them. And these are gonna look absolutely great on the new truck. Alright, so I found the original links, and these are what we're going to be using. So we have everything added to the front axle, and it looks like it's going pretty well. Now all we have to do is connect it to the rest of the truck. And as far as the rear, we need to put on these new links and shocks. These metal ones do look okay, but they don't fit with the rest of the truck. If I'm correct, they're originally from a Wraith. Now that we're talking about it, I also do have the front now basically done. Now, these shocks are actually pretty great. I'm pretty sure they're going to work very well, and they look great with the rest of the truck. I am going for kind of an OEM Plus build here, so none of the parts really stand out. So we've got a servo and the part to mount the servo, which I didn't even know we needed, as well as the hexes, drive shafts, and some 2.2 tires. I don't know if I'm actually going to put these on in case if they're too big, but they might actually look great. Now, while we're working on this front part of getting the servo mounted, let's talk about why this project is so cool. The Axial AX10s were built in the 2010s, which surprisingly doesn't correlate to the name, and they weren't super popular. So this truck I've got right here is super rare, along with the original Proline tuber chassis. Now that we've got the steering linked up, it's not that great, so we might have to do some upgrades later. As you can see, I'm powering it by hooking it into another project I'm working on, video on that coming soon, and it looks like the turning radius isn't going to be that great. So I've mounted the 2.2s, and they are kind of hilariously large, so I don't know if I'm going to use these. They look decent, but from the front they look absolutely terrible. Or at least they don't look like what the type of look I'm going for is. So now I have the original wheels back on, and I think they look so much better. I also have 5 of these for some reason, so that does mean I can put on a spare if I want to. And this truck is really starting to come together. Aside from the transmission and electronics, we don't have much more to do. My favorite part of the build is still coming up, so stick around for that. Speaking of which, we do have these custom-made body panels, and they look decent, but I only have like 3 of them, which means I would only be able to do it on one side. So what I'm thinking we do is 3D print a couple of these, and then paint them whatever color we want. So we have a transmission ESC right here, and it's a big motor for a crawler, but I'm also going to upgrade the pinion and spur gear. Now, I did decide to do some different drive shafts. This is because the ones I was using were plastic and weren't really designed for a crawler. So I put some stainless steel ones on. They should be a lot more durable and last a lot longer. We also have the upgraded transmission gears in, which I stole from a 1/10 scale Arma. They are made of steel, so if you're used to plastic gears, then they don't sound great. But they're every bit as durable, if not more. Alright, now we have the transmission and drive shafts in. And it's looking like they're going to fit perfectly despite the fact that it is a little bit of a large motor. It looks like the wheels aren't super balanced, but they should be fine since it's a crawler and not a basher. So let's get everything cleaned up and we should be good to go. Alright, everything's cleaned up, we've got steering in, and we've got just about everything else. This truck is looking absolutely sweet, and it's going to be super capable. So I'm thinking we try it out a little bit. Now, the approach angle on this is something to absolutely die for. I mean, look at that, it just climbs the wall without any problem. Alright, so we're now cleaning up the axles with a Dremel. Now, this is an absolutely terrible idea, but it does work. You can see the difference there, and it looks a lot better. Alright, skipping forward in time a little bit here, now we do have the first body panel printed and sanded. I couldn't find any models online, so I had to make one myself. I think it turned out well, so let's wait to see the other ones. Here's the thing crawling a wall a little bit better in the light, and just look at that flex. This thing's gonna be super fun. But now we do have the rest of the body printed. I chose to go with a desert tan, and I think it makes this truck look absolutely unique. Painting with model paints is always so satisfying. Now, of course, we had to do a couple of layers because I've spent a lot of time on this project and I want it to look good. I just had this paint laying around from a deal I did a couple of months ago. And I wasn't going to use it anywhere else, so I decided to use it here. We've got it done, masking off, and it's all ready. So let's take it out on the trails. Now, I'm super excited to see how it does, but it seems like the power is a little bit low. I'm not sure if that's an issue with the ESC motor or something else, but we'll figure it out. Today, we did just take it to the woods near my house because I didn't really want to drive anywhere. And in case if there's a problem, I can go back and fix it pretty easy. This thing looks absolutely sweet going down these trails. And I love the paint color. The masking did add a really good accent for that hood scoop, and I think it brings out the color even more. Here's the first real obstacle, let's see how it does. Absolutely no problem. I'm gonna play some music over the next few videos, so we can just enjoy this truck. Well, the battery died. I want to be clear, I was recording almost the entire time. So yeah, it took about 2 minutes. But overall, I'm super happy with this truck. I think it looks great, and the tan is a perfect color for it. This video is already getting pretty long, so I decided to not have the running video in here today. But look out for it in the next few weeks to days. We are going to be doing a running video in one of the parks near my house. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.